Hi, my name is Kate Ham, and today we're going to go over 3 different moves to help with some hip stability. Our first move is going to be in a quadruped on all fours. So come into all fours, knees will be underneath your hips, wrists underneath your shoulders. Take your right leg, kick it straight out to the side. Now, send both hips back and shift your weight forward. So this may seem like, what are you talking about? This doesn't have much to do with stability, but it does. We are looking at stretching out your inner thigh, which sometimes can interfere with the muscles of the outer muscles of our hips that need to work. So pick a spot where you feel a stretch, and you can also always slide your foot out a little bit more. Pause here, take the foot and try to pull it in. So we're activating our inner thigh here. And then release. And try to slide your foot out. So my foot is staying in place, but I'm actively trying to press it out. Notice how you're feeling some of these muscles starting to fire up. Release, shift your weight forward and back. And then let's switch legs. So the right knee will come in, left leg is going to kick out. Foot is in line with your knee. Send both hips back, shift your weight forward. And my toes are trying to face forward as well. So again, remember you can take your foot and slide it away from your body, which will give you a little bit more of a stretch if needed. So pick a spot, hold here. Take your foot, it's not going to move, but I'm going to actively try to pull it in towards the center of my body. And release. Now my foot's going to stay in place. I'm going to actively try to press it away. And release that tension, send the hips forward and back. And come on my side for the second move. We're going for side laying hip circles. Bottom arm can work as a pillow. Both knees can be bent about 90 degrees right in front of your body. And from a side laying position, top hand is going to come onto your top hip. Float that knee up, and we're going to keep the hips nice and steady. That's the one thing I want you to focus on. From there, take your knee and see if you can make the biggest circle you possibly can with it without really creating any change anywhere else in the body. So we're using our hand on our top hip to make sure as I lift up, I'm not leaning back. Also to pay attention, like if I'm bringing my foot back, am I arching my back here? We're trying to keep everything nice and steady and just make 5 circles with your knee in one direction. I think I switched directions, but we're going to automatically switch after we do 5. And sometimes you'll see this foot circle with a lot more nuanced moves. Not going to get that picky today. Just focus in on keeping the hips steady and try to move your knee around in space. And I'll link in a video with the alternate video. So now begin to reverse your direction. You may definitely feel the hip, the side hip. By doing this side laying, we are putting more emphasis on these hip muscles to work. Let's take one more circle. And resist the urge to stretch or do anything else. We're just going to flip around, rotate on the other side. So again, bottom arm will be a pillow. Knees bent 90 degrees. Top hand is going to come onto your top hip. Float that leg up and begin to make 5 circles in one direction. And you'll notice I'm not the best counter, especially on the other side. And again, not caring too much about what's happening in the knee, how big your circle is. We are trying to get it as big as you possibly can, but without moving anything else. So keeping that hip steady, not letting your back move around. And let's begin to reverse direction when your knee comes forward. So whatever direction you went before, going in the opposite direction, letting the hips feel and move. Well, probably done now. Let your knee come down and come on up to standing. Our final move is going to require a yoga block or a book. A book or something that's a little bit more firm than this squishy block can be better for you. Something maybe at least about 2 inches. You can also do this up against the wall. So block is going to be down on the ground. One foot is going to come up on the block. Hands are going to come to your ASASs, the very bony points in the front of the hip and the pelvis. And see if you can balance on one leg, let your other leg floating. I like to do this with my floating leg flexed, or ankle flexed. I'm going to begin to take my floating leg and start to lift that leg up. And I'm going to try not to change too much else in my body. And you'll notice that the angle of my pelvis has changed. Then I'll begin to drop the hip down, see if I can touch the floor. And again, the angle of my pelvis is floated. The angle of my pelvis has changed. So I'm going to begin to lift the hip like I'm trying to make sure that I'm spilling water out on this side, then dropping down so I have water spilling out on this side. And we're going back and forth. You'll notice this requires quite a bit of work in that standing leg. And you may want to notice what's happening on your rib cage also. Are you kind of leaning over to one side when we are trying to get a little bit more pelvis? If that's what's happening initially, it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's what happens. Let's switch feet. So other foot will be on the block, coming up to standing, hands on your pelvis. Notice where you are and begin to lift that floating foot up, letting the hip hike, dropping the hip down, lifting the foot up, and dropping down, taking a few rounds up and down. Awesome. Release. So thank you for watching. These were 3 moves to help focus in on hip stability. I hope you enjoy them. Have a great day.